In the studios this morning, we've been joined by the country's Minister of Information and Civic Education, Chernor. The minister is here to talk about the outcome of the UN General Assembly in New York, President Bill's speech at the UN General Assembly, and other government activities. Chernor, Mr. Minister, it's a pleasure having you as always. Good morning.
Morning, my brother. Great to be with you always. I see we're matching in color tone at least.
Absolutely.
I'm enjoying your design this morning.
Yours looks good as always.
Thank you.
I always don't tell you, say it's a man good. Back style, eh?
I would tell her.
How have you been, Mr. Minister? Suppose you've been
great.
Out for a couple of weeks now.
Yes, I've been out of the country for a bit. We were at the UN General Assembly, and as I think I've shared widely, I also had the privilege of visiting the island of Cuba. Beautiful place. I was really inspired by what I saw there and their commitments to memory, to history and art. And I'm looking forward to using that trip as an opportunity to deepen our relationship as well between, Cuba has done a lot for us as well, especially in times of crisis with doctors here supporting us in medical. So I was able to meet the Sierra Leonean students there. They never get to see a public official from Sierra Leone. It's a difficult place to go to, but once you get there, truly there's a lot that connects the people of Cuba and the people of Sierra Leone. So I was very excited to be there. And I was part of the UN trip as well. We hosted the first ever Civic Day in the US with the Sierra Leonean Diaspora. They showed up. We were really incredibly pleased with the outcome, the level of the conversation. We gave them the microphone to ask us all questions. We had about 10 government ministers there. We had members of parliament, other advisors. And we had a frank conversation about the state of affairs of our country. And I think at the end of the day, they all said that they learned so much more from that interaction than what they see on social media, and that they realize that so much is happening in this country. There's a lot of really amazing progress that's on its way, and that sometimes you don't get to see that. So there's a real power of a platform where citizens engage with their leaders, with the people that are tasked with the responsibility of managing the affairs of the state. We just came back, from as soon as I arrived, I went to Bo. We had another Civic Day in Bo. That was also incredible.
Minister Siba and Minister Chernor, there is a lot to talk about into this edition of the Wake Up Sierra Leone. But as you earlier mentioned, of course, we know you held the maiden edition of the civic engagement in the US.
Yes.
But just a clarification, was it an engagement for SLPP supporters in the diaspora, or was it open to all Sierra Leoneans?
In fact, I challenge you to go and look at the pictures of who was there. Prominent, outstanding, independent thinking Sierra Leoneans and SLPP supporters and APC supporters, because they're part of Sierra Leone. But it was an open event. We advertised it weeks before. People had to pre-register. But even those who did not pre-register, it was open. Everybody walked in. We gave everybody the mic to speak. There was a long queue of people who wanted to speak. Everybody was welcome to come talk. And they did, and they asked tough questions in a respectful, dignified, civil way, as Sierra Leoneans are. Sierra Leoneans generally are. Forget what you see on the social media. Sierra Leoneans are very, very respectful, dignified, civil people. And whenever you create a platform, that's why I've been so bold to ask His Excellency to sit and do a town hall, the Chief Minister and others. Because once you give that platform to the average Sierra Leonean, they treat it with respect. They respect our leaders. We've got a lot of good things going on for us in this country. But yeah, the US platform was amazing. I was blown away by the level of turnout, the people that came. I mean, keep in mind, it was a work day. It was a Tuesday at 4 p.m. That hall was packed. Doctors, nurses, engineers, lawyers, people who are hustling in America, people who are doing all kinds of students, they were all there. Almost everybody that picked up the mic said, thank you for doing this. Please continue to do this. We feel we're part of the society. Just being here, just watching you, just listening to you. They were grateful for that. And then they asked us tough questions about everything, transports, the road, the healthcare sector in this country. What are we doing with trying to reduce prices for flights that are coming in, the visa ban, like a whole range of issues. It was anchored by the Chief Minister, who was our keynote, who spoke first. And then we brought the Minister of Finance, Minister of Technology, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Unprecedented. But that's exactly what President Bill wants us to be doing. That's what I'm very proud to have led and continue to lead in this ministry, is bringing the government closer to citizens and creating a new culture of civic dialogue.
Many Sierra Leoneans in and outside Sierra Leone have commended the leadership showcased by President Bill at the UN General Assembly, even though many others do hold a contrary opinion as to what were discussed at the UN General Assembly and the realities on the ground. But how loud was the bell in terms of its volume that it rings when our president did make his speech?
I have a unique perspective on how Sierra Leone is represented at the United Nations General Assembly, because I was there. You know, as you know, from 2012, I worked at the UN. I was right at the General Assembly. I was always there. I was attending high-level events. I will attend when former leaders will be speaking. I took part in some of the peace process events at the UN. And in the past, as I've said, Sierra Leone was the subject of the conversation. In many ways, either we were used as an example of how peacemaking or peace building or conflict or child soldiers, and I was part of those conversations. I presented at Security Council, I presented reports there years ago, long before now. So to see this incredible transformation that's been pioneered by President Julius Maada Bio, that's moved Sierra Leone from being what I refer to as on the table to now at the table, leading the conversation, setting the tone of the conversation. I was very proud. I think every Sierra Leonean should be very proud. Before his big speech at the UN, he convened a C10 meeting, a special one. It was attended by multiple heads of state, representatives of the US government, the Big Five in the Security Council, representatives of top blocs around the world. Now, for Sierra Leone to be a convener, to bring the world, to come and talk about a major issue, chaired by the president of our country, I sat there and that moment was not lost on me. The changes that we as a people have made in our international stature, led by a visionary leader that we have in President Bill. And then, of course, his big speech. His speech was one of those that were anticipated. The world wanted to know what he was going to say in his capacity as ECOWAS chair, in his capacity as a member of the Security Council. And I'll tell you, I think the chief minister and the foreign minister have said, when the UN Secretary General spoke to His Excellency, he said, I commend your country and you for your consistent adherence and commitment to the UN principles. He said, I don't think I can see any country that has, since independence, maintained your commitments to the UN Charter in the way that you have done. President Bill spoke with moral clarity. He maintained the stance that Sierra Leone has had on complex global issues. He named the genocide that was happening in Palestine. He called for a ceasefire. He said it has to happen now. He called for ceasefire not just for the conflict in Palestine, but he called for ceasefire for other conflicts around, the forgotten conflicts in Africa, in the Sudan, in these forgotten places on our continent. He brought those issues to the fore. He spoke as a global leader calling for reform of the United Nations. He said we should transition from just talk to action. He said the UN cannot represent us all if the UN does not indeed make space at the very highest level for permanent position of Africa. And he said that Africa should be treated. You know, we sat there, we watched the emergence of this small country of 8 million people, really small on the map, but globally with incredible stature. And I think no matter what your political persuasion is, no matter how you feel about His Excellency, if you are a Sierra Leonean and you're watching that, you should be filled with some pride. You should be filled up with, my country is respected. My president is a global statesman. I don't think you can argue with us.
Minister, just as the president did echo the circumstances that has plagued nations across the world, of course, the Israel issue among other things, many Sierra Leoneans were hoping for the president to have referenced Yenga, more so when, as we speak, he is the chairman for ECOWAS, and he sits integral in the C10, which of course is also a very powerful body, Mr. Minister.
You know, His Excellency mentioned a lot of issues, including cross-border violations, and calling for the United Nations to step up to protect countries like ours. He mentioned challenges that are happening in the sub-region. He talked about the AES countries.
It did so in passing, Mr. Minister.
No, I'm saying that at that podium, at that platform, he's a global statesman. He's representing his country. You know, our president is not a crybaby. He has already done the things that he needs to do when it comes to Yenga. We've already informed the United Nations officially. We have written to the United Nations. We have contacted the African Union and asked for their intervention. The ECOWAS has sent a team here recently. He's not going to stand there and begin to complain about singular issues. He says we need to solve these problems. This was at the highest level of the world. He mentioned it. He mentioned the commitment that he wants to see the world's commitments to a global order, to respecting countries' boundaries. He mentioned what is happening in the AES countries. He mentioned terrorism on the continent. He mentioned peace. He mentioned the threat of fake news and disinformation. He mentioned the threats to our democracy. This was a speech that was, I think, that will stand the test of time. Because again, it was not a petty, it was not a laundry list. I see the other day somebody say, why not talk about Kush? It was not a laundry list of little issues. It was a global speech. And he mentioned challenges. He mentioned Africa's young population and the issues that we have to confront. And those are now it's our job to look at and dissect, as you're doing, and engage on these, you know, the corresponding issues and how these issues show up. But I'll assure you that President Butte thinks deeply about Yenga, if that's the question, and he's already taken steps on Yenga. He's used his position at ECOWAS to seek what he's always said he's committed to, which is a diplomatic resolution of what we as Sierra Leoneans consider an unwarranted and unprovoked aggression by our sisterly country, Guinea.
It is essentially clear from what you mentioned that the president did emphasize his administration's commitment to combating narcotics. But as you did say, I don't know the description you gave to it, you don't want to what? Come again, Mr. Minister?
I said it's not a laundry list.
It's not a laundry list.
Yes.
But the current realities on the ground, I remember the other day how passionate you were when you were talking about drugs. Because the fact is, it has affected every family, and from according to it, including yourself. Now, from what we now see on social media in a month, you have about 200 youth, even though, yes, they're calling for post-mortem to be done on people who you see from their physical outlook, with the sore on their foot, you will want to say, yes, it's as a result of drugs or what have you, Mr. Minister. You've been very passionate, but the realities on the ground, Sierra Leone are saying that the speech by the president doesn't resonate with what's actually happening in Sierra Leone, Mr. Minister.
You're right on the issue of drugs. It's something that I've spoken about personally.
Yeah.
We were just in Bo. One of my aunties in Bo, I call her my auntie, I'm a child, I'm a product of Bo, picked up the microphone and she spoke about her only daughter, and that her daughter is now addicted to Kush. She didn't just speak, I think she wailed, she cried. You know, ooh, mama, then they cry from the belly. That's the cry from the heart, saying, she begged the Minister of Youth who was on our panel, she called my name and said, please do something about this. Please do something, guys. She challenged government. I can assure you that's a cry that His Excellency has had. That's a cry that the Honorable Vice President, who I spoke to yesterday about this issue, has had. we have challenges. We have some serious challenges here with drugs. I've said before, it's a social problem. It's not a problem that government alone can solve. It's a problem that we can do some things about, including increase our investments in the treatment centers that the Ministry of Social Welfare had set up, including the Public Health Agency should take it as a priority. And I know that work is being done now to accelerate that investment that is needed to respond to this issue. But I'll tell you what, on this issue of the Kush crisis and drugs, I don't have a political answer. I have an answer as a father, as a parent, who has seen how it's affected my family. I've seen it given to my child in a school setting. And it's not the government that did it, it's people within networks. And we all have a duty, we all have a responsibility to disrupt that. We know the people that are selling them. We know the people that are bringing them. We should disrupt that. Government should do more to ban our borders, to make sure that there's no impunity for anybody that is even associated with this. I can tell you that is something that a lot of us are deeply committed to, and we're doing everything that we can to address this problem, but it's going to require every Sierra Leonean to do their parts. Families have to do their parts, friends have to do their parts. We need a more robust civic campaign, and I have to do more as well within my ministry. All sectors of society have to step up. The media, we have to talk about this more. I commend those who have taken on this issue and crusading on it, because it threatens the future of our country, and too many youth lives are being stolen by this. So I don't want to get into the argument or the 200 whether or not this. No, even if one person is taken away by this crisis, it's one person too many, and it's a failure on all of us. It's a collective failure on all of us as a society, and that's something that I think we should not be proud of.
Sadly, though, this morning I met a colleague of mine. We're at Trabe College, a first class arts political science department.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He's also a victim of sin.
He's been in and out on this drug issue as well. I think he went into the rehab center and he came out, and I think he's had a bit of a relapse as well. Yes, what this tells you, from my child to your colleague who's a first classer, is that the drug crisis is no respecter of persons. Sure. It doesn't discriminate. The rich, the poor, the educated and the uneducated. It's not, because sometimes it's reduced as it's a crisis that affecting the people under that bridge. No, it's affecting all of us. It threatens our kids who go to private school, those who go to public schools. It threatens those who are in cars and those who are working on the streets. It threatens all of us as Sierra Leoneans. And that's why I say it's a societal issue. The problem is sometimes when the conversation starts, people seek to politicize it and to use it to blame government. No, drugs, and the people benefiting from it, by the way, are not just from one political party. I can assure you, as you've seen with the arrest and all of these things, it's from all sectors of society. So we all have to come together. It's one of those things that we should resolve on and join His Excellency in that war that he has said we must wage on this to win. And I think you're going to see us do a lot more than we've been doing.
There is absolutely much more to talk about, but respectfully, Mr. Minister, many Sierra Leoneans will say the fight against Kush has been fought more or less through press releases and political speeches, and much of what is needed at this moment is a national strategy that is evidence-based, inclusive and sustainable.
We do have a national strategy that is evidence-based, inclusive and sustainable. I think the issue is just the availability of the resources, to be completely honest with you, to fully implement that strategy. After the declaration of His Excellency, we worked on a comprehensive strategy with input from a wide array of sectors. We looked at every single thing, because again, with the Kush crisis, with all drug crisis, you got to think about the drivers. Look, people take, even if it's not Kush, people will take drugs if they are feeling a certain way and if they are vulnerable in a very certain way. That's the history of that. I like to mention people used to take Pampers, people used to take nail polish, paint. Drugs is a factor of oftentimes a psychosocial problem, right? That's people seek a high that they cannot get elsewhere. So you have to address that as well. And then you got to address the supply side, right? Law enforcement and all. And I think that many people who are paying attention to this know that there was a period where the law enforcement really upped their game. And they went after all these little conclaves that were selling and distributing this. And we saw a reduction, the increase in the prices and the reduction in the supply in the market. I think it seems as if that there's a resurgence and they have found a way to bypass the system, and so the system has to rethink. We had opened rehabilitation centers that unfortunately I think had been shut down because of lack of resources. I know that these are being reactivated again. So there is a strategy that's been developed. I think what I will accept is that there's not been a consistency in the rollout and implementation of that strategy. And that's something that I know that at the very highest levels, conversations are happening about how we should accelerate, we should move more resources and do it to the logical conclusion. I've always said that we have many social problems in our country. We've got many problems in our country, and people will always say, oh, I got many spare money on this. The fact of the matter is that government resources are limited. Full stop. That's it. Government is like your home. If you spend money today on the water, if you spend money today on buying the fantastic suits that you're wearing, it means that's money that you're not spending on something else. That's just the fact. And I think part of my job as a civic education minister is to explain to people that government is like your home. Money is opportunity cost, is scale of preference. You spend today here, it doesn't mean you spend on education, you pay the teachers, the doctors ask for pay raise. We don't have unlimited resources. That's the reality of Sierra Leone. We do not have the resources that is able to spend, and that's the fact. And I think as soon as we understand that, then we say, what's our duty as well to help government to generate resources, to pay our taxes. And it's not, what we give to government is not, it doesn't have to be big money. If you make sure that when you buy this water, you ask for the proper receipts, that's $1 or cents that's going to government. That's going to help the kitty. Of course, we also have to root out corruption at all the agencies that are collecting our taxes on our behalf, because we need to increase that pie significantly. And we have too many disturbing news reports all the time about how one person at one of these agencies is stealing $1 billion, 80 billion, while the country is starving for much needed resources to pay for these things that we have. That is why Sierra Leoneans have a moral duty to stand up against any and all forms of corruption, because corruption is stealing from you, it's stealing from the purse that we should have. So when the Minister of Finance has to make a decision to pay school subsidies today, some people say, why do not pay, why do not pay? Because we don't have unlimited resources. Once they pay that, that's something else that we're not paying for that month. That's the reality. And I think Sierra Leoneans need to understand that. As a country, we've got a kitty. It's like your home. Nobody has unlimited resources. When I buy this, it's something else that I see that I cannot buy. At least not for now. I would say maybe I'll buy that tomorrow. So there's this juggling act that's happening to maintain the economy, to make sure that at least people's basic needs are met, that salaries are paid, that we have a supply of the resources that we need to keep the country going on a monthly and a periodic basis.
I don't find pleasure in narrowing this conversation to the drug issue that we're faced with at the moment. But I just noticed you've put on the regalia of the reasonable man, the ordinary Sierra Leonean. Mr. Minister, at this moment, many are worried. The fact is the president, from according to releases that we've seen of recent, spent over 200 or so billion in traveling and what have you. And there is a separate budget being created for travel, among other things. Just last week, I hosted a representative from the National Revenue Authority who did mention their target is 18.9 trillion. And they've, of course, to date, they've collected about 12.2 trillion, which is painting a picture as if, yes, they will actually get to where they hope to, of course, get in terms of the revenues they generate for the country. Things seem tight, as you rightly mentioned. Money no day. But the president, the travel, money day for in travel one and whatever, Mr. Minister. Are we majoring our major? Are we majoring our minor and minor in our major as a nation?
You know, this feels like a cyclical conversation that we always have about the president's travel. As I said, the government is like your home, right? You have resources. You have to decide where you're going to spend those resources on a periodic basis. You also have priorities. You have non-negotiables. You have the resources that you say, hey, these are important. I'm going to spend them because these are the returns that I'm going to have. From the president's travels alone, okay, the resources, the returns that we have in terms of our stature, our ability to mobilize additional resources, the fact that we have MCC now, the billions that we're having in, these are resources that will not be there at all. So again, if you're a basic economist, you ask yourself, is the investment worth the returns? And I'll tell you, without an iota of doubt, anybody that pays any close attention to that will come to the overwhelming conclusion that absolutely every dime that is spent on His Excellency's travel is more than worth in terms of the returns that we get. Because when he travels, he is almost without exception bringing additional resources back to the country. I've said this to many people. This is a family man who has a young daughter who's not even a teenager yet, who has a family here, who enjoys, President Bill's true passion is nature. He loves to be in his farm. He loves to be in the sea. I've had the privilege of being in the burnt waters with him where we both hail from.
That was what he said a couple of days ago in Tonkolili.
But it's true. I've had the privilege of being on a boat with him alone and watching him on the sea. He's at peace with nature. I've seen him on his farm. That's what he would rather be doing. He doesn't want to be, I tell you what, plane travel away from your home in these hotels and all of those things, it's not like, oh, the president left for travel because he left for I've told people, the president doesn't need per diem. Not to your average middle-level staff where say, they travel because he need the per diem money. No. His Excellency, if he chooses to go on a trip for foregoing these pleasures that I've just mentioned that he truly will enjoy, nature, his family time. When he's home, one of the things that he's reputed for is he goes back home every evening because he helps little Amina with her homework every day. This is what this man loves to do. He's a family man at heart. But he's also a statesman who, from a teenager, when most people are looking for what opportunities to do, to seek, he sought to enlist in the army because he believes in a higher order. He believes in service. That's the record of his life. Only military leader who in less than 3 months organized elections and handed over power. He believes in a cause that is higher than himself. Organized elections, started a peace process, came back, he's been dedicated. He's the only leader in my memory in Sierra Leone who has not toyed with third term. Never. Even though he's leading a constitutional review process, where everywhere else in Africa they'll be thinking, okay, Lord, add 2 more years, Lord, add 1 more term. He has removed. No, I just want people to understand who this man is. And because I watch him in cabinet, I see when conversations happen, for example, about the death penalty, and he says, it's never going to happen again, not when I'm here. My commitment to this is absolute, irrespective of what's done to me. And what people thought after November, Lobre and Kabaki is absolute. His commitments to gender equality, women's empowerment, despite pressures, his commitment to inclusion, his commitment to education, the amount of strains on our budget to even people in our party says we must reconsider free education because the strain is too much, especially the conversations, because government, again, is like your home. If you're spending 22% of your budget on just one sector, where you have all these other sectors, it's money you don't have elsewhere. But his commitment is absolute. He's a principled man. And so when he chooses to travel, I can assure you it's because he has calculated the cost-benefit analysis, and I challenge anybody who's paying attention to this. You just calculate the aggregates of the resources that he's been able to accrue from his international travels. You will say that it's an investment that is absolutely worth it in terms of our stature, in terms of money, in terms of partnership, in terms of the positions we sit, the benefits we get as a country, without a doubt.
The president has positioned himself at the acme of things, more so in terms of, at the global stage. At the moment, Silent is co-chairing, of course, a committee that speaks to education at the global stage. But many Sierra are also worried about the fact that the government over time has propelled the free quality education drive. That's, of course, it's rolling out at the global stage, but nonetheless in country, a majority of the kids of, say, government officials are no longer attending the government-assisted schools that some of us were attending. Even the president's daughter, is she attending a government school that is being sponsored by the free quality education government is propelling?
You see, I've made it clear before that the conversation misses the point if you want to talk about my child. You want to talk about every child. You want to talk about the president's child. The investments in the free quality education. Yes, so the investments in the free quality education, the judgment on the free quality education is not going to be based on my child. It's going to be based on objective indices, an analysis of what the country is doing, the number of kids that we have in the school system, the number of teachers that we have, how we are performing. That's the objective. And to say, oh, they are no longer attending, it suggests that, oh, these kids were in there and they were removed when free education came in. That's not true as well. The idea of the free quality school education program is to make sure that the opportunities that I have, that I had before I came into government, that the opportunities that kids of people who are middle class, middle income, high income and all that, that they have, the opportunities that education gives, is provided to every single child. It's not to take away opportunities from other people. It's to expand opportunities for all. And that's something I am very proud to stand by. My kids go to mixed schools. I've had kids I send my kid to both schools. I also send my kid to private schools. And that's okay. I want a Sierra Leone, and that's what I'm working for every day. That's what President Bio is working for every day. Where every kid, irrespective of the school that their parents sends them to, but have an opportunity to have quality education, to have the same transition opportunities that people like us had. I went to Kankele Islamic Primary School. I went to Bishop Crowder, commonly called Kanike School, yeah. And then I graduated to the Great Albert Academy. I'm very proud of that. But it's that education, exceptional as I was, that propelled me to where I am today. What the Free Quality Education Initiative is about is to make sure that the kid in my mom's village in Jimmy Bagbo, the kid in my father's village in Pakande, which is in Bond District, have the same opportunities to go to school. And I can assure you that before President Bio came, about 1.5 million kids today who are in school did not have an opportunity to be in school.
But the quality remains a problem. I can imagine. I know the school you're talking about, Bishop Crowder.
That's my school.
I also live around Ferry Junction, and so I know Bishop Crowder.
Yes.
I know that, during the time when you attend Bishop Crowder, it's one of those schools that many will be proud of in the eastern of Freetown because yes, they were doing well.
My brother, please, I beg. Me attend there. I sit down at Kanike School. I understand that school. I know they bring me school down because they produce me, but I will tell you that it was not all glittering. But that's again the point about quality, and you mentioned quality is still the issue. Quality is something that you continue to build on. Every country in the world still talks about quality education. US elections are determined by what's the quality of the education. Quality in Sierra Leone, we should measure by our pass rates, the number of teachers that we have, and on all of those things, government has made major investments, and we are the best we've ever been. Full stop. A combination of number and outcomes combined, and we'll continue to increase. That's the fact. Now, people can argue about it. They can use one example as extreme. Many schools now, including these great schools, historic schools, are transitioning to one shift system. My school. That's something that we're seeing happen now. So first, we had to accommodate the shock of the millions of new kids that have come into the school system. It upended some of the institutions a little bit, but what has happened is we've consistently invested in hiring new teachers, in finding creative ways of training these teachers, and investments in universal preschool education. That is why President Bio is appointed as co-chair internationally. It's not because they can because they talk out. Now because they look at the data and they look at the results. That's what is going to, we're going to be judged by not if, look, in Peking they go this. No, it's not about my Peking or you Peking. It's about every Pekiners alone and creating an opportunity where people can aspire. It's the same thing when we talk about pregnant girls going to school. People say, oh, the bobo safe enough for good school. I was like, no. The advocacy is not about taking opportunities from you. The advocacy is about making sure there's opportunity for everyone. And that's what free quality school education does. It's making opportunities for everybody. I'm not a litmus test. The test is all the kids, because even if my kid went to that school, I have private classes. I have the means to invest in private classes that your kid is not going to, or somebody else's kid may not have. So that's not the litmus test. The litmus test is, let's look at the scores across the board. Let's look at the investment that I made. Are we paying the teachers on time? Yes. Are we making sure the teachers have what they need? Are we providing school materials? Are we investing in school feeding programs, which the data suggests particularly is a game changer for females and kids in poor households to retain them in school. And on all of those things, the indices are trending in the right direction.
So, Minister, we'll soon talk around Mission 300 Compact, a proposal which has already been endorsed, and similarly so, the President talk around fighting against hunger at the global stage. Of course, the feed salon will not leave this podium without talking of the feed salon. But again, how concerned is government with regards selling and diplomatic passports that is landing in the hands of foreigners? Of recent, we just saw one, a Turkish, who is a holder of asylum passports. That is under investigation, Mr. Minister.
So on this issue, I want to say a few things. One is the Minister of Foreign Affairs was absolutely right. Okay. No country has communicated to us that, oh, we have your citizen or your citizen has been arrested, and a whole, because there's a protocol that needs to be followed. If somebody is found conducting illegal activities and they wanted to repatriate that person to our country. Now, nobody has contacted Sierra Leone on that. So the Minister of Foreign Affairs was absolutely right on that. But the Sierra Leone Immigration Department is also right with the release that we worked on, that they've put out, which is, once we saw the news, we did not wait for a diplomatic communication. Look, the passport of Sierra Leone is a sacred document that must be respected. And for it to continue to hold the sway that it has, I've just spoken here at length about how our president has helped really increase our profile and the stature of our country. So we have to ensure that that passport remains a document of great respect and is treated with the rights, accorded the privileges that it must be accorded. So we share in the concern, absolutely, of citizens that if somebody who is involved in any illegal activity is speculated, reported, we're not going to wait for a formal, for them can tell we will take actions. So what His Excellency has directed the Immigration Department to do are two things. A, what are the circumstances by which, because people, by the way, diplomatic passports are also, sometimes you reward people for certain things for your country. Somebody might make something for you. You might appoint them as an attaché of something. You might appoint them as, consul. They get this. There's a process. So His Excellency has asked for, going forward, he wants to review the processes of diplomatic passport. He wants to review this particular case, how this person got that passport, if indeed, but really make sure how this person got that passport. Check the document that was submitted and then the processes that we have so that we can prevent an abuse, a misuse of our sacred documents going forward. So it's a serious issue. We take it very seriously. And that's why you saw a proactive release by the Sierra Leone Immigration Department. And again, it's not the way it used to be before, where it was say, oh, no, they're not cartel. No, it was a very, I really commend them for the candor of that release, coming forward and say, they're not denying, they're saying, okay, we're going to look into the processes that led to this, and we're going to look beyond this one case, because, again, President Bio cares about how this country is perceived around the world and how our documents show up.
And same proactive push is what many were expecting for yours, like Dekas or Malche.
Which is actually what we did as well with Jaws. Because what happened with Jaws, as we've mentioned many times, is nobody contacted us. What they did was to go on social media and the media, which is not the diplomatic, appropriate way of engaging on this issue. They contacted us after the fact, but we were already in motion in terms of we went public. We said we were investigating. We've been in touch with the Dutch government. Multiple conversations have been had about what they want, about what we can do, what is within our laws. We have to respect our laws. We've got a deportation law in this country, extradition law, that follows a very specific process, and I can assure you the Attorney General is looking very closely into that process, and that's what we're going to do as well.
Mission Compact 300 seemed the biggest news in the building, which was born from Sierra Leone's, presence at the UN General Assembly. Will help the public understand what it means for Sierra Leone and how far are we with the proposal?
We had said to people, I've said many times, that the Minister of Energy of Sierra Leone is President Julius Maada Bio. So when you have the President himself as your Minister of Energy, you expect big things to happen. He's put together a terrific team led by Chairman Kande Koleyomkela and the Deputy Minister Noni, who's a young, brilliant mind as well, and a team of other folks. And I think the world is looking at the plans that we have developed in Sierra Leone, and they're saying this is a country that is worth investment. What the Mission 300 Compact is about is each country develops a plan to how you basically achieve energy independence, which is the goal that President Bio has set, and that plan is costed. And the world leaders say, hey, this is a good enough plan, we approve it, we're mobilizing resources because you people, you mean business and you're serious. And every Sierra Leonean should be very proud. Just yesterday, again, there was another announcement of about, I think, 45 megahertz investment for Kabakwe as well. Again, because the Minister of Energy is President Bio. He is leading a transformation of the energy sector. He's already done a lot of preliminary background work on moving this country forward towards energy independence. And what you've seen with all of these new compacts and conversations is the endorsement from the rest of the world, is the team managing to mobilize the resources and the partners across to get us where we need to get to. And the summary is that lights they come. Light is coming. There's light. We have what we have now, but we're moving towards the president's stated goal of energy independence. And I know that Chairman KKY and his team are working very hard at that.
A press release dated 15th October 2025 coming from your office, the Ministry of Information and Civic Education, has an headline that reads, Sierra Leone announces transformation of Miata Civic Center into a national hub for civic engagement, creativity, and digital information. Help us understand why this transition.
So, Miata is the name of the mom of President Shaka Stevens, Miata Massaquoi. The building was constructed, a building in the 70s. Miata Conference Center, as you know, was an iconic center. Many people went there. We all made speeches, learned how to act, but for many years it's been abandoned in some ways or not properly maintained, and it's not become this. So in the wisdom of His Excellency, he said, he asked the Ministry of Information to take a lead of Miata to transform it into a civic center.
Have we the fund?
Sorry?
Have we the fund to get it?
So that's where I'm coming. Mm-hmm. So he said, look, can you come up with a vision, a dream, of how this space can be transformed into an iconic civic center where Sierra Leoneans meet, where Sierra Leoneans dream, where Sierra Leoneans imagine and create? And so we started a process a few months ago to identify bright minds that will help us to achieve this goal. The ministry doesn't have the capacity to fully do it. So we've convened an exceptional, talented group that we've begged, basically, to take time off their work to serve as advisors and advisory council. And I'll tell you, the advisory council is co-chaired by the brilliant chartered accountants, management consultants, Marima Anthony Williams, the exceptional artist, curator, facilitator, musician, Kate Contreras, who is the co-chair. It includes Frederick Ampere of UNDP, Hawajin Bangura of the Barre, Sama Banya, who is a quality assurance artist, creative, Show Cole, everybody knows him, Cribs International. Sarah, she's based in Sierra Leone, North African, who is a curator. Antonia Howard, doesn't need introduction here, an exceptional musician, comms person. David Bakima, who is my friend, who's the managing director of One Mobile, who's one of the most, I think, outstanding Sierra Leoneans. Michael Abio, who is a curator as well, well known. David Colin Ogu, who again I think is at the heartbeat of the digital transformation that's happening in our city. Franklin Momo, who is a young creative, who is a convener. Yeniva Sise, curator. Dr. Fatu Taki, Harold Nat Jones, Fode Dumbuya, Labram, Valona Taylor from the ministry, and we've got representatives from other ministries as well. An exceptional pool of talented, outstanding individuals, Sierra Leoneans and non-Sierra Leoneans alike. We're very proud of that they have said they will help us to imagine. So we had our first meeting yesterday, we went through the space and all, and their task is going to be to advise us to be ambassadors for the space, to help us mobilize the money. And these people, they can help us mobilize the money to be able to get to the dream that His Excellency has, to make Miata a space for civic, a space where people on international tours can come to Sierra Leone and say, then get a venue and are we worthy of that, where we can host international conferences, where we can host artists, we can host dance, we can host training, we can get young people there. That's the vision of this Miata Civic Center, which we announced yesterday. The vision is this advisory council, co-chaired by these two outstanding women. And by the way, I've seen comments about somebody not being Sierra Leonean.
Yeah, I think a whistleblower has mentioned Kate, who...
It's not a whistleblower, it's on the website. You know, a whistleblowing is when something is secret. Kate is the facilitator and the co-chair.
Will you allow me to learn respectfully, Mr. Minister? They've referenced Kate, whom they say is the wife of Chief Minister, who's been given this appointment to co-chair this drive.
Yeah, she's... Kate... You know, there are two things I'll say about Kate, because I know her and I love her. You know, I think one of the people that commented on this is Madam Sylvia Blyden, who I respect and who I consider my sister. You know, she has said that she's a daughter of Kailao. But one of the things I think that maybe she doesn't fully grasp yet is in the Mende culture, when you marry us and you have our children, you're not a foreigner. You're part of us. Kate is married to a proud Sierra Leonean man. She lives here, have lived here since 2018 at least, has Sierra Leonean children, is at the heartbeat of a lot of beautiful things that are happening. She leads a team Telem. They've been touring and putting Sierra Leone on the map. She is a well-respected international facilitator, has worked for Google and all of these fantastic top companies in the world. And we're asking her to help us because she's here and she has the same desire to help us create this space. And you know, this country has a rich tradition of not just spouses of our political leaders, but non-Sierra Leoneans in the arts and creative space who join and work with other Sierra Leoneans. This is the spirit of Sierra Leone. It's actually the spirit of Miata, which, by the way, the building was a gift by the Chinese. It means friendship. It's a friendship. Yu in Chinese is friendship. It's a friendship house. And so to question us naming somebody as co-chair alongside a Sierra Leonean, somebody who is a Sierra Leonean now by our culture, because she's married to us, she has our babies. Beautiful kids who are Sierra Leonean kids. I think it misses the point of what the spirit of Miata is. It's something we're very proud of, and we're very grateful that Kate, and not just her, by the way, there are lots of other non-Sierra Leoneans on that list who will join us in this fantastic team of talented, outstanding Sierra Leoneans to deliver on President Bio's vision. And they are all advisors. They're not leading it, led still by the ministry, but they are advisors that will help us to get to where we need to get to.
We'll just take a few messages and series to wrap up this segment. Firstly, from Mystic Dwazaki says, the prevalence of drug abuse in Sierra Leone is alarming, especially Kush and tramadol. The excessive intake is really affecting young people in Sierra Leone. I must admit that much has not been done in areas of proper monitoring and enforcement. The flow of the distribution chain is alarming. Mr. also says, it's so sad seeing your primary, secondary and university colleagues in deplorable conditions as a result of Kush and tramadol. Every family has been affected directly or indirectly. If you don't have the victim as a family member, the victim must have caused some serious theft in your home. Let us be serious by pointing at people who are Kush and tramadol operatives in our communities. Mosdi says, Mr. Minister, the more you propagate or attempting to make the case for the president's frequent travels, basically you're telling us, the people, of how incompetent. Please, these selected people like the ministers, ambassadors, etc. No disrespect intended. The other countries that have successfully achieved foreign donors, grants, loans, etc. have done so mainly through their relevant ministries and heads of departments respectively. So why is Sierra Leone the only, or maybe one of the few countries that the president has to travel a lot? May God forbid, but realistically speaking, you guys are even taking the risk involved in this many travels into serious consideration. Again, no offense intended. The last man says government carries a fair share of the blame. They determine what comes or goes out of the country, so let them put an end to this prevailing issue of Kush in the country. Last man also says, Mr. Minister, please update us on the status of Ambassador to Guinea who was caught. This one is not clear who was caught with cocaine. I don't think that was the case, but the minister will clarify anyways. Santiki Kagbo says, Mr. Minister, please inform the president about the Kush epidemic and other dangerous substances that are killing the next generation. We need a pragmatic solution to end it all. Many messages. Ben Jackson says, good morning, Mr. Minister Siba. Many young Sierra Leoneans are losing hope as economic hardship deepens and drug abuse, particularly the risk of Kush, spread through communities. Despite repeated government statements about job creation and youth empowerment, the situation continues to worsen. Can you explain why these interventions have failed to produce visible results and what measurable changes the government will implement within the next year to both tackle youth unemployment and curb the drug crisis that is crippling the nation's future? Samuel, this one is from Mohamed Nyale, who says, Samuel, the minister is just fulfilling the wish of his master. The education for all he's talking about is not seen as supposed by rights and law. It should be education for all according to Section 9 of the 1991 Constitution, and clearly subsection 1A and B of the same stated it's that there should be no discrimination and special treatment should be given to the vulnerable groups. But this is the same government that embarrassed a 40-year-old woman from writing to us last year. And to tell you about the disabled in the universities is deplorable, which I believe they should be taken care of by the government as per the constitutional provision. A lot of messages. Momo Joanna says, yes, our leaders say they've done well in health, but when they and their families get sick, they are taken abroad. They speak good of education, but their children attend private schools. God help this country. A lot of messages. Suleiman Alim Kamara says, the law enforcement bodies know the location and those who sell the drugs. As for me, it's easy to take them down, but corrupt laws enforcement institution are part of the deal. They receive bribes from the drugs dealers not to stop them from selling the drugs. Morgan also says, yes, we agree he's taken Sierra Leone to global stage, but he has done little to combat the almighty Kush. Amara Barcelona says, this country, as long as we are not honest with our dealings, it will be always challenging to progress. Swissman says, a lot of messages, Mr. Minister, but I will allow you to respond to those ones, and we wrap up the conversation.
I mean, it's impossible to respond to all of those. I just want to say thank you to citizens. I think one of the things that I am proud of is that we welcome any and all kinds of criticisms and comments. I think these Sierra Leoneans are entitled to their opinion, and we live in a country where President Bill has guaranteed that by repealing the criminal libel law, that you are free to say what you want to say and that we can have a debate. I encourage them to join the ministry, follow the ministry's page, follow me, share your comments. Let's have a heated debate on these issues. I think some of it is based on people, may not have all the information. For example, say, oh, countries that have transformed have not traveled more, don't travel, or it's their ministers. I can assure you that what His Excellency does, no minister can do that. The rooms he goes to, we cannot. And in these conversations, when they want a head of state, it's a head of state. Otherwise, you're not even part of the conversation. But I get it. And as I said, these are legitimate concerns that people raise and citizens raise, and we welcome that. On the question of the seriousness of the drug crisis, I can tell you again that this is something that takes a significant part of our time, and we do have resource constraints. But I know that the Vice President is currently convening to really push for more and more resources to be spent, to particularly bring back, for example, rehabilitation centers, and to do more on the public campaign side. So these are issues, as I said, for me on the Kush crisis, it's not a political or even official position that I take. I take a personal one because I know the threat that had on my child, my first child who carries my name. And so it's the same thing with how we approach these issues. We're Sierra Leoneans first and foremost, right? We I know it's very easy to think, oh, this government, somebody's appointed yesterday and all of a sudden they think about you as government people. That no, we're all Sierra Leoneans, right? And yes, we do go to hospitals here because even if you're sick, even if you have the means, you first have to go to a hospital here. And that's why Chernor has seen the kind of dramatic transformation that we have. That's why we've built the first pediatrics hospital that you have now in Lumley. That's why we're investing in a new hospital in, across the country, in the south, in the north, like all over. That's just the objective fact. On education, as I say again, you look at the number of kids we have in the school system, the pass rates, how we're doing, number of teachers that we have, and our consistency in those issues. And again, I think it's the job of citizens to ask these questions. It's our job to continue to point out that when you look at the aggregate, the country is trending in the right direction. Thank you for having me.
Mr. Chernor, it's always a pleasure having you in our studios. And as you rightly mentioned, it's a conversation that will continue.
Yes.
I'm serious to have you in our studios all the time.